Today's shir is being dedicated L'Zecha Nishmas Yachad Esther Bas Moshe. We should also have in mind that tonight's shir is going to be dedicated to the protection of the soldiers in Eretz Yisrael who are putting themselves into harm's way, who are being Moser Nefesh to protect all Klal Yisrael, the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, of course, but what happens in Eretz Yisrael affects the Jews throughout Chutz La'aretz, and these soldiers need protection. Of course, it also should be dedicated to the protection of all Bnei Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael and, of course, in Chutz La'aretz. And you know, sometimes you have to really remember what Rabbi Yisrael Salant said. He said that when a Jew is learning in Vilna, he's protecting a Jew in Paris. We don't see the physical protection which takes place. But at the same time, we all know that there are microwaves all around us. We're all on cell phones. Right now we're listening to the radio, and at the end of the day, we don't see the waves, but they're there. The same also, the protection that we have when we do a mitzvah protects all Klal Yisrael. My name is Yehuda Zakatinsky, and I am the director of an organization called Hashivenu. We're located on Main Street, and we work with outreach. We have a morning-based medrash program. We have a wonderful shul. We have shiurim. We have a lot of things going on. You can always reach me at 646-591-7025. Or our email address is hashevaynu, the 4u, that's the number 4, the letter u, at gmail.com. Tonight's shir is a continuation in some sense of the shir that I gave last week about outreach. And we're going to be talking tonight specifically about one yesod when it comes to reaching out to people. And this is not just reaching out to non-religious people, it's to firm people, it's to your children, it's to your in-laws, your parents, your wives, your husbands. It's a general yesod, and I think it's something which really has to be and should be worked on during the 9 days, which is a time period, as we all know, that of calamity to Klal Yisrael because of the lack of Avas Yisrael which took place during the Bayis Sheni. So, but before I start there, I just felt it's important to speak a little bit about the obligation of doing kiruv or doing outreach. So I didn't really mention much about it last time, and I think that in each shir I'm going to just bring down a source or two, bli neder, on that specific topic. So the Rambam wrote many different svarim, and it's actually fascinating because he writes in Sefer HaMitzvos, which is where he writes down the 613 mitzvos that the mitzvos that he felt were in the 613. He writes something very interesting. I'll read it to you. It's Mitzvah Gimel, and he starts by saying that Mitzvah Gimel is Hu shetzivanu b'ahavaso yis'ala, that there's a concept of loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there's a mitzvah of loving Hashem. So the Rambam, first he says, how do you get to that madrega? And then he says over here, Ukvar bi'arnu, and we've already explained, the Rambam writes, Shezos ha-mitzvah, that this mitzvah of loving Hashem, Gam ken koleles sheniye karim livnei adam kulam la'avodaso yisala, that it includes going out to every Jewish person and promoting them to love Hashem, ulahamin bo, and to believe in Hashem. B'zeh sha'ata, and why is this? Kishetehav ish es echad, When you love somebody, the Rambam writes, Tisaper b'shvachav, then you talk to everybody about how wonderful this person is. B'tarbe bahem, and you enumerate. When you're going out with somebody and you get engaged to that person, you go to everybody and say, "Oh my gosh, I met this amazing girl who I'm getting married to. She's so wonderful. She's so beautiful. Her midos are so fantastic. Her family is so nice." Why do you do that? Because you have a love for that person. V'tikra b'nei ha'adam, and you call out to people, le'av oso. And you tell people that they also should love this person. V'zeh al derech moshav kain, and he says this is the same when it comes. Kishetab oso yis'ala be'emes. When you love Hashem, kasher yigia lecha me'asagas amitaso, when you get to the understanding of who or what Hashem is, and you love Hashem, atakore b'lisafek hasichlim v'apsoim ladas yedias ha'emes asher yedias yedato. You call out to everybody on the planet that they should also understand and love Hashem. The Lashon Sifri, and the words of the Sifri, the Rambam writes, are V'ahavta es Hashem. What does that mean? Ahavaso ala brios, that you should cause there to be love of God on all humanity. Ka'Avraham Avinu, as Avraham. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk about Avraham, Besanefesh asher asu b'charan, that Avraham created these souls in Charan, Ratzalomar. And what is the Rambam says? What this means is, Kamo she'Avraham mibnei shu ohev, because Avraham loved Hashem, as it says in the pasuk, "Kamo shehid kasuv Avram ohavai." It says in the pasuk that Avraham was a person who loved me, and I loved him, of course. V'zeh ba'otzem hasagaso kara b'nei ha'adam lahamim b'shem meirov ahavaso. He said, therefore Avraham went out of his way to go and call everybody to love God. Kain ata ahuvoso. You should also go out to tell people that they should also love Hashem. Ad shetikra olav b'nei adam, until people themselves called out to Hashem. So the Rambam is being very clear, and in the Sefer Chomas Hadas by the Chafetz Chaim, the Chafetz Chaim writes that we say the Shema numerous times a day. We say in the morning, we say the Shema at Ma'ariv, we say Shema, Kriya Shema Lamita, and what do we say? We say V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, and the Rambam is saying that if you want to fulfill the mitzvah of Avas Hashem, the way to do it is by going and calling out to Jewish people and to all creations. So this is a very important source about our personal obligation to go out and reach out to others. The truth is that any person who has a heart understands that when you see a fellow Jew and they have no idea about what Shabbos is, and they have no idea what the mitzvahs are, it's impossible for it not to break the heart. It's just impossible for it not to break the heart. Rav Pam, my Rebbe, Rav Pam, I heard him say this, that on Simchas Torah, he said, in the name of a very big gadol, I don't remember who it was, so I'd rather just leave that very big gadol, I believe in Eretz Yisrael, once said that on Simchas Torah, there's no doubt that we're very happy dancing and we're sameach with the Sefer Torah. The question is the Sefer Torah happy with us, knowing that so many Yidden are so far away because they just have no idea, as it says in the end of the book of Yonah in reference to the people of Nineveh. And of course the Yidden are not the people of Nineveh. Every Jew is Amech Kulam Tzadikim, so we're not in any way comparable. But Hashem said about the people of Nineveh, shouldn't they have Rahmanis on them? They don't know the difference between their right hand and their left hand. So we have the same situation, unfortunately, in our world today. So many Yidden are so far away. And you remember the famous concept that there are 600,000 primary neshamas of Klal Yisrael, which relates to the 600,000 Yidden that left left Mitzrayim into the Midbar to receive the Torah. And we know that there are 600,000 letters in the Torah. Now somebody's going to say, if you count it up, they're actually less, but there are letters which are composed of two letters. Like, for example, let's say a Ches is a Vav and a Zayin, or and therefore, if you add it all together in that way, it comes out to 600,000. Now, we have probably all experienced, unfortunately, when a Sefer Torah has found, when there's a psul found in the Sefer Torah. I had it this past year where there was a Sefer Torah and there was a psul in it, and we, in the middle of davening, you know what happens, the Rav gets up. When the Baal Kriya finds the mistake, the Rav gets up and looks at the mistake, the potential mistake, and there's a silence usually in the shul, and everybody's sitting there and they're feeling a little bit sad, what's going on. And then, you wrap up the Sefer Torah, and if you're Ashkenazi, you put the gartel on the outside of the Sefer Torah if it's a real psul, and you put the Sefer Torah back in the Aron, because unfortunately it's missing a letter, or a letter is scratched off, or a letter was touching, or whatever it might be. There's a problem with a letter. So also, imagine if there's one Yid that's missing out of the 600,000 number Yidden of the world. Imagine how we should be feeling. It's like, it's not a letter of a Sefer Torah, which is, of course, holy of holy. It's unbelievable when a letter gets ripped off, when a letter gets ruined and not there in the Sefer Torah. But when there's a Yid that's missing, oh my gosh, the Sefer Torah of the world is missing. Oh my gosh. So we have to really feel that, and that's why we have to reach out. But the way we have to reach out, like I said last time, is Midos Tovos, making good impressions through our Midos, making a Kiddush Hashem, not making a Chil Hashem, recognizing that everybody is watching us, recognizing that the whole world looks at us. Oh my gosh, we have a war in Israel, and Israel is being held accountable in ways that no nation on this earth would ever. Now granted there's tremendous amounts of anti-Semitism, but on the other side of it, there's a concept, there's a feeling that Israel is on a higher standard. We're on a higher standard. They're holding us to a higher standard of accountability. It is, again, part of it is because of anti-Semitism, but part of it is also the recognition that we are on a higher standard. So that is our obligation, I want to tell you something. When it comes to being on a higher standard, and every Jew is good, when you really think about it, somebody once asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe how he's able to stand, Zechat Tzal Livracha, how he was able to stand online and see all these Jewish people waiting online, hours and hours and hours and hours, giving out dollars and listening to them and giving brachas, hours. The man was already in his 80s. He was an older man. Hours and hours. How could he do it? And he responded that a person never gets tired of looking and counting and looking at his diamonds. If a person has a bag of diamonds, you never get tired of looking at your diamonds. So the Rebbe, Zechat Tzal Livracha, looked at all Bnei Yisrael as his diamonds, and he could see the beauty of each diamond. One diamond might have a slight flaw. Actually, every diamond has something, I believe, wrong with it, but there might be a slight flaw in every diamond, but that doesn't matter. The diamond itself, in the bigger way, is brilliant and valuable and precious. And whether it's a small diamond, you don't throw away a small diamond and say, it's only a small diamond. Are you kidding me? If somebody would come to you and give you little diamond, what are they called? The little chips of a chip. Would you take the chip and throw it away and say, I'm only interested in diamonds that are 1 carat? I mean, you might not be interested in buying that specific diamond for your wife's engagement ring, maybe, but as far as just throwing it away, not seeing the value, not at all. Every diamond is valuable, and anybody, if you would take a diamond, if I would give a diamond to any person, and it's a little chip, and that person would say, you know what, I don't see the value in this little chip, and throw it away, you'd say the guy's crazy. All Jewish people are like diamonds. We just have to see the good in everybody. We just have to see that good. We have to see the good in ourselves. That's the big issue. I spoke about that last week. We have to see the good in ourselves. If you don't see the good in yourself, it's going to be very hard to see the good in anybody else. I want to tell you a story. This was like, I've been involved in outreach and in Jewish education for many years, but this story always resonates in my mind because it made such a strong impression actually. So many years ago, we're going back now, around 1984, I think, 83, 84, maybe 82. Yeah, it must have been in 1982, I'm sorry. So I'm in Esha Torah. Now, in those days, there wasn't a discovery program. In those days, there wasn't a Project Inspire. What happened was you had people from Esha Torah. We're talking about in the late 1970s and early 1980s, and maybe till the 90s. I don't know, because I was teaching there till 1984, and you would have people from go down to Esha Torah, go down to the Kotel, or go to the central bus station. And if they would see somebody who they felt either looked interesting or showed an interest, they would go, ask them if they would like to come to see Esha Torah, if they would like to meet a philosopher, if they'd like to learn about Torah, whatever it was, come for a Shabbos, and they would bring them in. That was one population. And then there were people called the receivers. I was a receiver very often. That was the first person that this person met. So I'm sitting outside of the old Esha Torah building and sitting there waiting for anybody new coming in. And a young man came in. He was from Georgia, and he told me, I'll never forget the story. He said to me that all his life, he grew up in a very secular, non-Jewish environment, and all his life he was looking forward to being a Marine. And he finally, he volunteered and he got into the Marines. And when he was as a Marine, the biggest covet that you could get was to be the machine gunner. This is what he told me, because the machine gunner had the most power. Granted, the enemy wants to shoot out the machine gunner as fast as possible because he, after all, has a machine gun. But it's a position of covet. Well, what happened was Israel was fighting in Lebanon, and America decided that they were going to go into Lebanon, and this soldier was given the opportunity. Actually, he was being told that he's going to go into Lebanon as a Marine. And his commanding officer, knowing that this person was Jewish, said to him, if you get the order to shoot an Israeli soldier, even though it's unlikely, but if that order would come, would you go ahead and abide by it? And this Jewish person, who absolutely knew nothing about Judaism, said, I would shoot a Marine before I will shoot an Israeli soldier. So he was quickly asked to leave the Marine Corps, and his dreams were shattered. And he came to Israel, and he came to Esha Torah. And I don't know what happened to him, because, I don't know if he stayed or he left, but I could tell you one thing. He had a heart of gold. And that's what a Jew is. We are all Jewish people are wonderful, good people, and we have to always keep that in mind. And therefore, it's a very important thing that when you're dealing with others, not to be judgmental. And there are many elements of being judgmental. And it's a very, very hard thing not to be judgmental. So what I'd like to focus on today is one specific area of being judgmental, and we'll deal with other areas on different shiurim, because this is such a great, difficult area. Basically, you know, I'm going to start off with something which to me is very fascinating. It says in the pasuk, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," that you should love your fellow Jew as yourself. Now, to be honest, it is impossible to love another person as yourself. But let's go further. Let's say it's possible that you can love somebody else like yourself. Well, let's go a step further. The mitzvah is not made for the tzaddik yisod olam. The mitzvah is not made for a person, for the regular tzaddik. The mitzvah, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, was made for all Jewish people. That means that it's within every Jewish person's ability to love his fellow Jew as himself. V'ahavta, the words are l'reacha, love your fellow friend, kamocha, like yourself. So first of all, this has to be a mitzvah that all Jewish people can do. Okay? And not only that, but it has to be not only that all Jews can do it, but that all Jewish people can judge all other Jewish people with that same sense of love as themselves. Beyond that, it's impossible. If you heard your baby crying, it's a natural reality that you're going to feel something for that baby more than if you had a friend's baby crying in the same room. And even if you were able to get beyond this and you were able to love one friend so much that their baby's cry would sound to you like your baby crying, but it's not one person. We're talking about all Jewish people. So what is the pshat of this mitzvah? V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It's not just a concept of a nice speech, you should love your fellow Jew. This is an obligation, so how could that be? So the Chafetz Chaim explains something very interesting. And it's when you think about it, it's unbelievable. You know, let's talk about when you do something which is wrong or stupid. You know, you park your car in a place where you're going to get $100 fine. And you don't think about it, or it happens to me all the time. You park your car by a meter, and you put in a half hour, but you really should have put in an hour. But for whatever reason, you figured you're going to make it, and you put in a half hour. Or you parked you parked your car at 9:30, and you said, and start at 10 o'clock is alternate side of the street parking where your car is parked, and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm gonna be out of the store in 15 minutes, no problem. So I'm in the store, I start talking to somebody, I look at my watch, it's 9:55, I say no problem, I'll get out of the store very soon. In the meantime, I come out, and you know what? Car's got this ticket, and you feel so stupid, and you feel angry at yourself. Well, let's go a step farther. I like to talk about cars because it's one of those things that everybody understands, and it's not the worst thing in the world. So then what happens? Next level, you park your car in front of a bus stop, and you figure, you know what? I'm just running in for a second. You come out, and that brownie is sitting there, and she or he is zapped your car for $100 ticket, and you feel like so stupid. And it's $100. $100 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Let's go even to the worst situation, which is that you park your car in the city or in front of a hydrant, and you come back. Or you know what? You didn't pay the bill for the parking tickets, and you come out and the car is gone. Or they put a boot on the car. Oh my gosh, that's the worst feeling. When you come out of the store, your car is not there, or there's a boot on the car. Oh my gosh. So what's the first thing? First thing is you feel really bad. You feel stupid. And you feel really upset. You really feel emotionally upset. A little bit later, you might get a little angry at why they do this to you, but you still feel bad. But after some time, a healthy, normal person starts saying to himself, you know what? Yeah, I got a ticket today. I'm stupid. But you know what? I'm not a bad person. If you take my overall perspective, I'm a good person. I give tzedakah. I'm nice to my wife, my family. I'm a good guy. Yeah, it's true that I got a ticket and I'm embarrassed and I can't believe that this is what happened and yada, yada, yada. A little bit later, in the day, you forget about the whole thing. Now, what is this based on? Because what you're doing is you're finding a heter for yourself. You're finding in some way an excuse for yourself, and then you're going on with life because you're looking at the sum total of who you are. You're not focusing on the smallness, but rather you're looking at the larger picture. And the Chafetz Chaim said that's what it means, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, that you love your fellow man just like yourself, just like you have inadequacies, just like you do averas, just like you are not perfect, just like you do things that you're embarrassed of, just like you do not necessarily reach your potential in areas that you feel that you could reach your potential, just like sometimes you might not be nice, just like you do things that are silly and stupid, just like you are not where you want to be sometimes, and yet at the end of the day you accept it, you forgive yourself, you judge yourself by the larger picture, you see the bigger picture. So also you should judge your fellow friend. Yes, that fellow person has inadequacies. Yes, that person does things that are wrong. Yes, he does, or she does. But when you take the whole picture, they're Jewish people. They're Jewish people. They're doing whatever they can do, the best they can do. And if you look in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, you could even see it in the words. It says, have a done, that you should judge, as kol ha'adam l'kavschus. It says you should judge kol ha'adam, the entire person l'kavschus. It's not the specific action necessarily that you're judging for the schus, although that we'll discuss in a moment. But what you're doing is you're judging the entire picture, giving the larger picture, and that's a big thing. And when you do that, every Jewish person means well. They just don't know. They didn't go to yeshiva, and if they went to yeshiva or they went to day school, they didn't necessarily have a good rebbe. I was zocha. I had Rav Pam, and even if they had a good rebbe, maybe their parents weren't good. You understand? We all understand, but you got to look at the bigger picture. It's always the big picture. Now, in the realm of judging, because we do not want to be judgmental, I'd like to quote, I'm going to read and discuss two amazing Gemaras. I'm going to read them inside and discuss them. I don't like usually reading everything inside, but I certainly think that this is worthwhile. The first Gemara is found in Gemara Tainus. It's Daf Chaf Beis Amud Aleph. It's 2 lines from the beginning of the large lines. The Gemara says, Rav Broka Chozah, the great Rav Broka, the visionary, Havishchiach b'shuka devei lefet. The Gemara says that he found himself often in the marketplace of devei lefet. Vavishchiach Elio gabe, and Elio used to hang out with him. I mean, oh my gosh, if a person saw Elio once in his life, Avkilu Elio, can you imagine what kind of level that person is on? Imagine a person who Elio was there all the time. Amalei. So Reb Broker Chazah says to Elio, Ika b'haishuka ba'alma da'asi, is there anybody in the marketplace over here that is going to be in Olam Haba? There need tzaddikim over here. Anybody here holy? Now, I imagine that the reason that Broka Chozo wanted to know this was because he wanted to learn from that individual. So he's asking Eliyahu Hanavi. He's not asking him about stock tips. He's not asking about real estate. He's saying to him, any tzaddikim over there, Amalei lo. He says there's nobody. Eliyahu Hanavi says there's nobody here that's going to be in Olam Haba. Adahachi v'hachi, time progressed, and it says over here, Chazalu Gavra, so he saw a person. He sees a person, and it doesn't say he sees a Jew, because he doesn't look Jewish. And it says, Tahavi Misayim Misani Ukmi, he was wearing black shoes. Rashi says, and on this, Rashi says, Misani Ukmi means, black shoes means Menalim, Shcharim, black shoes, Shalo Kaminag HaYehudim, which was not the way Jews would go. He was wearing Goyish attire. He was like today, if you had somebody wearing, I don't know, a mohawk haircut, he was doing something which was clearly not the way of the Jewish people. Black shoes was, and it says, you don't go in the ways of the Goyim, but certainly the person wasn't doing an Isser, but he was not necessarily, but he was certainly not wearing the Jewish attire. Not only that, below Rami Chuti beglime, and he wasn't wearing tzitzis. So Eliyahu says to him, Amalei. So Eliyahu says to Broka Chozah, Hi bar alma de osihavi. This guy, this person without the tzitzis, this person who's wearing the goyish shoes, you know what? This is a person who's going to Olam Haba. Rod Basrei. So Broka Chozah ran after him. Amalei, my uvdach. He said, "What do you do? What's your profession? How do you live your life? What do you do with your life? Because obviously, if you're going to be in Olam Haba, you must be doing something special." Amalei. So this person doesn't even respond. Broka Chozah, who obviously was such a great tzaddik, you'd think that the guy would say, "I'll tell you whatever. I'm honored that you're speaking to me." No, he says, come back tomorrow and I'll tell you. Amalei. So the next day, Amalei my uvdach. The next day, Lamachar. The next day, Amalei my uvdach. Broka Chozah sees the person and says, "What do you do?" Amalei Zandukna Ana. He says, "I am a prison guard, a warden. Vasarna na gavri l'chud v'nashi l'chud." And I put the men and women in different rooms. And not only that, V'ramina Puryaya ben Hani lahani kehechat lo lise lidei isur. And I put my bed between the two rooms so that nothing happens. I protect the men and the women from doing averas. And he says, and listen to this, he says, Ki chazina bas Yisrael. He says, when I see a Jewish woman, Diyavi nachrim aleha einei, when I see a Jewish woman and the Goyim are looking at her in an inappropriate way, Misarna nafshi, I put myself at risk, umatzilna la, and I protect her. And then the Gemara gives an example of how he once did that. So Broka Chozah said, I understand now. Now I understand why this person is he didn't say, the Gemara didn't say these words, but it's understood that this was the reason that he is a Bar Alma Dasi, he's an Olam Haba person, because after all, he is putting himself, he's being Mosa Nefesh for the Klal. Amalei, my time less lachuti. So Broka Chozah says to this person, but why aren't you wearing tzitzis? Why are you not wearing Jewish clothing? And why V'ramis Misani Ukmi? Why are you wearing Goyish clothing, the black shoes? Amalei. So listen what he says. Amalei Broka. The person says, Ilna unafiki bene nachrim. I work amongst the Goyim. Ki hecha de laleda dihudayana. I don't want them to know that I'm a Jew. I'm a spy. I don't want them to know that I'm a Jew. You know why? Because when they make a gezerah against the Jewish people, I go to the rabbis, I tell them what's going on, because I have inside stories. Oh boy, Rachmi, they go and they pray to God, and they go and they break the decree. Umay Taima, and Broker says, why was it when I said to you, what do you do? And you said, come back tomorrow. Why didn't you tell me today? So Broker says, Amalei says, Bahu Shaita Gaza Gzerasa. At that exact moment, there was a Gezerah, and I said, Beresh first, Ezel ve'eshmel Rabban liboy rachmei Allah, the Milsa. He said, let me go and tell the rabbis first, because there's a situation at hand here. And that's a very, very important thing which must be broken, because there was a Gezerah, unfortunately, against the Jewish people. What do you see from this Gemara? What do you see? You can't judge anybody. You don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in another person's life. I don't know anything. You go in the street, you know who's holy, you know what's going on in another person's life. This person didn't look from at all. He was wearing goyish shoes. He wasn't wearing tzitzis. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. I always tell over this one story, which probably doesn't mean anything to anybody, but to me it meant a lot. I was teaching in Hank, and my son cut his finger, and he needed to get stitches. And at the time, I have 4 children. At the time, I had 3 children. And I remember I quickly ran home, and I had a tape that I had borrowed from somebody, and I was late on giving it back. And I felt bad about it, but it happened. And I had to drop off my 2 children at that time, I have 4, at that time I had 3. I had to drop off 2 of my children by my in-laws, because I was bringing my son to have stitches, and he's bleeding in the car, and we're all nervous, we're all panicked. And as I'm driving over to my in-laws' house, I parked the car. There he is, the guy who I owe the tape to, and he comes over, and he's a little bit of a yucky type of guy. I shouldn't say yucky. I should say he's very a little anal. And he says to me, "Where's the tape?" And I say, "I can't talk to you now." He says to me, "But where's the tape?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't talk to you now. I'm in a rush." Anyway, at the end of the day, he's a nice person. I'm sure he judged me with the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, did he know what was going on in my life? Absolutely not. Nobody knows what's going on in another person's life. Broker didn't know what was going on. Broker chuzah. I mean, I'm just thinking about this right now. This is the beauty of being involved in Torah. You see more insights over and over, deeper and deeper. It says over here, I was just thinking, as we're talking, why does it tell you this story that Eliyahu was buying this whole thing with Eliyahu? I mean, it's a great story, but there's a deeper message, I think, over here. He's called Broka the Visionary. He's with Eliyahu Hanavi, and even that, he didn't know what was going on in the life of this person who didn't wear tzitzis and had non-Jewish clothing on. So you could be a person that is hanging out with Eliyahu Hanavi, and you could be called the visionary, and you could still not know what's going on in another person's life. It's not that you could still not know. There's no way for you to know, because that's the experience of being a human being. We don't know what's going on in another person's life. It says in Pirkei Avos, Al tadinis chaverecha ad shetagil imkomo. You should never judge a person till you're in their place. So the Lubavitch Rebbe Zechat Tzal Yevkadosh Yivracha said, therefore you can't judge anybody, because you're never going to be in their place, because nobody is in anybody else's place. And even if you think you're in their place in some way, you're not in their exact situation, because your parents were not their parents. And even if you're brothers or sisters, your situation is not the same, because everybody understands we're not the same. That's story number 1. I mean, my gosh. And also you see from over here, you don't know. You just don't know what other Jewish people are doing. You just don't know. Wait until you hear the next following Gemara. Gemara says, this is in Shabbos. This is unbelievable. This is Shabbos Kuf Chaf Zayin Amud Beis. The Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, Hadon Chavero lekafschus. If you judge your fellow friend lekafschus favorably, and we'll talk in another shiur what that means, how different situations of judging favorably, although the Gemara here does give some very clear perspective, but we'll spend more time on a different shiur. Danim also l'schus, then they in turn judge you favorably. Umaisa, the Gemara doesn't stop there. The Gemara goes on and gives examples of what that means. Umaisa, ba'adam echad, there was a person. Sheyarad migalil ha'elyon, he went from the northern Galilee, and he went down. V'niskar etzel balabayis echad b'darim shalosh shanim, and he went to work by a wealthy person. It turns out by the end of the story, you'll know that he was considered one of the wealthiest Jews in Israel, and he worked for 3 years for this person. And during those 3 years, he apparently didn't take money, or he let money accrue so that he would be able to bring money back to his family. Erev Yom HaKippur. So we're going to take the best day of the year to ask a person to pay up, and that's Erev Yom Kippur, because there's a mitzvah to pay up your people who you owe money to. So Erev Yom Kippur, Amar lo, so he says to his boss, Tein li schari ve'elech, please give me money, and this way I can go. Ve'ezon is ishti ubanai. This way I'll be able to go and pay, give money to my wife and children. Amalo, so the boss says to him, Ein li ma'os, I have no money. Now remember, we're talking about one of the wealthiest Jews in Israel, and we're talking about a person who worked for him for 3 years, so he knows what's going on, that the person has. Amalo tenli peros. So the worker said, you know what, you don't have money, okay, no cash, so let me have a produce. I can then go take the produce and sell it and get money or whatever. Amalo ainli, the person says, I don't have. Tenli karka. So the worker says, you know what, no money, no produce, so give me some land, real estate. Ainli, I don't have. Tenli behema. So he says, okay, you have no land, you have no money, you got no produce, even though, I see everything. Let me have livestock. Ainli, I don't have livestock. Tenli karavikisos. So let me have the furniture. Give me the furniture. I'll sell the furniture. Ainli. The boss says I don't have any. Now, imagine, this is crazy. The person worked there for 3 years. He sees everything around him. So the Gemara says, so he throws his clothing over his back and he goes to his house. There used to be a TV show called The Little Rascals. And in my brain, whenever I learn this Gemara, I always think about one of the rascals, like it was many, many years ago, throwing the thing on his back and leaving. And he goes to his house with poichli nefesh, all depressed. You can imagine, he gets home. Imagine what the wife and the children say. Okay, where's the money? You've been working for 3 years. I don't have any. Why don't you have any money? Well, my boss didn't give me any. Why didn't he give you? Because he didn't have. So what you were working there? Why were you working? Because I saw all the money that he had and he told me he was going to pay. You can imagine. So after the holidays, the balabas went and he brought with him all the money that was owed, and he says that he had 3 donkeys. One was filled with food, one was filled with drink, and one was filled with all sorts of delicacies. And he went to he went to the person's house, the worker's house. Okay, and then Gemara says something interesting. After they ate and they drank, he was paid. I mean, my gosh, people wouldn't want to have the person in their house, let alone eat and drink with the person. Amalo. So the balabas says to the worker, B'shah shamartali, when you said to me, Tenli schari, you said to me, give me money, and I said, I have no money. What were you thinking about me? Amarti, he said, I thought maybe there were some business deals, and you were short on cash. You became cash poor. You had much property, you owned stuff, but you had no cash because you used it all on you had a liquidity issue. And he said like this. B'shah shamartali tenli a behema. When you said to me, give me some animals, and I said I don't have any animals. What were you thinking? I said maybe they were rented out to somebody else. Okay. And when you said to me, let me have property, and I said I have no property, what were you thinking? Marta, I thought that maybe they were already out. There was like a lien against them. Okay. I think it means a lien, but the bottom line was that the property was not available anymore. And when I said to you, you said to me, I have no payros, I have no fruits. What were you thinking? So he says, the worker said, Shema Eina Meusharos. I thought maybe you didn't take Meiser, so you couldn't give it to me. Because Allah is that you can't give somebody payros if Meiser wasn't taken. And when you said to me, let me have property, the furnishings, and I said I don't have any, what were you thinking? So Amarti, the worker said, Shema hiktish kol nechasav v'shamayim. I thought maybe all of a sudden you decided that you're giving away all of your furnishings to the shamayim, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Amalei. So the worker said, now listen to these words. Havoda kachoya. It's exactly like you said. Hidarti kol nechosai. I made a neder to give everything away. Bishvil Hyrcanus b'ni shel asak b'Torah, because of Hyrcanus, my son, that didn't want to learn Torah. Ucheshabasi eitzel chaver b'darom, and when I came to my friends, the Rabbanim in the south of Israel, hitartali kol nidarai. They went and they annulled all of my vows. V'ata. Listen to these words. Kishem shadantani l'schus. Just like you judged me favorably, hamakom yadin oscha l'schus. God should judge you favorably. Who was this person? So, the She'ilta says that this person was Rabbi Akiva. Before he was a Rabbi Akiva, he was Akiva ben Yosef. That's who we're talking about. A person whose midos was so perfect. This was Akiva ben Yosef, who went down to work for 3 years and then came home with nothing. And Rav Pam said, and I heard him say this, that it could be that because of this, he was zocha to become Rabbi Akiva. I just want to say one thing here. The Kedushas Levi said that there's like a hekesh between V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha and V'ahavta L'recha Kamocha. If you want to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to love Jewish people. But it also goes the other way. Rav Pam once said, and I heard him say this, that every time a mother takes a baby and gives a kiss and a hug to the baby, you're causing the baby to have Avas Hashem. Because you can only have Avas Hashem if you love yourself. You can only love yourself if you've been loved. So when we reach out to people and we love them and we care about them, we're bringing them close. Because then they feel that sense of love. And then they say, you know what? I want to be like a person that judges people favorably. I don't want to. I want to know what is so special about the Jewish people, about the great tzaddik that's able to sit and look at people and say, I stand on line, like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, that he's willing to stay on line to count his diamonds. Like Rav Pam, who said that I hold a baby, and when you hold a baby and give a kiss to a baby, you're causing a spiritual ability for that child. We want everybody wants to be a tzaddik. The most non-religious Jewish person wants to be close to God. Be'ez Hashem, we should all be zocha to see the day. Like the Kedushas Levi said, I mentioned some things about him today. The Kedushas Levi said that when a Jewish person has a pair of tefillin, go back. The Gemara says that in the tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kav Yachal, doesn't mean physically, but it means spiritually. It says Hashem Ashma Yis. It says Mika Amcha Yisrael, who is like the Jewish people. So the Kedushas Levi said that when the tefillin of a Jewish person falls down, a Jewish person picks it up and kisses it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Kedushas Levi said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Levi Yitzchak from the city of Bardichev, the son of Sarasasya, said that when the tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are on the ground, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please pick them up, kiss the tefillin, kiss the Jewish people, make there be peace in Eretz Yisrael, let there be peace amongst the Jews in all Golus, and bring the Geula Ho'amiti that we need so desperately. And let it be that this year's Tisha B'Av turns into a great, great Yom Tov. Good Shabbos.